Last summer, I pulled 47 roses off a single David Austin bush in my front border, and the bush right next to it, same variety, same soil, same sun, gave me 22. 22 versus 47. The only thing I did differently on that one bush was bury banana peels around the base in a very specific way, on a very specific schedule, starting 30 days before the first flush. And I'm telling you right now, the photographs do not lie. The bloom-heavy bush had blooms stacked on top of blooms, deeper color, thicker petals, and the canes were noticeably stouter by midsummer. Now, I have heard the banana peel trick 1,000 times. Bury a peel under your roses. Folks have been saying it since my grandmother's day. And honestly, for most of my gardening life, I lumped it in with all the other bits of grandma wisdom that sound nice, but never quite deliver. I tried it the lazy way for years, tossed a peel in the hole at planting, walked off, and saw no real difference. So I wrote it off. Most people write it off. Here's what I want you to hear me on. The banana peel trick works. It absolutely works. But 90% of folks doing it are doing it in a way that delivers maybe 10% of the actual benefit. And once I figured out the right preparation, the right placement, the right timing, and the one thing nobody talks about, which is the soil chemistry that lets the rose actually take up what the peel is offering, my rose blooms doubled in a single 30-day window. Doubled. Not improved a little. Not perked up. Doubled. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I do it now, the science of why it works on roses specifically, the 4 mistakes that ruin the whole thing, and the precise 30-day schedule I follow from late winter through the first big bloom flush. And stay with me to the end, because I am going to share a fermented banana brew recipe that I picked up from an old rose grower at a county fair. And that brew is the single biggest reason my second flush in late summer is now bigger than my first flush used to be. Costs almost nothing, takes about 10 minutes to set up. Let me back up and tell you how I figured this out, because I did not get here from a book. I got here from 20 years of mediocre rose seasons. I have grown roses since I was in my late 30s. Mostly hybrid teas and a few English shrub roses my wife picked out from a catalog back when the kids were still in school. Year after year, my bushes were healthy enough. Green leaves, decent canes, a respectable first flush in May or June, and then they would coast through the rest of the summer with maybe a few sad little blooms here and there. I told myself that was just what roses did in our zone. Then, about 4 summers ago, I was out at a county fair over in the next county, and there was an old fella running a small stall with cut roses you would not believe. Stems as thick as my thumb, blooms the size of a saucer, color that hit you across the room. I asked him what he fed them, expecting some fancy fertilizer brand. He laughed at me and said, "Son, my roses eat better than I do, and most of what they eat comes out of my kitchen bin." He spent about 20 minutes walking me through what he did, and the center of the whole thing was banana peels, but not the way I had been doing it. I went home that week and changed my whole approach. The next spring, the difference was so obvious that my neighbor came over and asked what I had sprayed on them. I had not sprayed anything. The science behind why this works on roses specifically is actually well understood once you stop and think about what a rose plant needs to put on a heavy bloom. Roses are what we call heavy potassium feeders during their flowering phase. Potassium is the nutrient that controls how the plant moves sugar through its system, how thick the cell walls of the petals form up, how many flower buds the plant decides to set, and how well those buds resist the heat and the wind and the rain once they open. If your roses are throwing small blooms, weak stems, or buds that brown off before they ever open, 9 times out of 10, that is potassium telling you it is hungry. A banana peel by dry weight is somewhere around 42% potassium. That is an enormous concentration, far higher than most things you can put in a garden. It also carries a healthy dose of phosphorus, which roses need for root development and flower formation, plus calcium, magnesium, and a whole stack of trace minerals that synthetic rose fertilizers either skip entirely or include in token amounts. So the peel is, on paper, an almost perfect rose food. The trouble is the form. A whole banana peel buried in the soil takes roughly 6 to 9 months to break down enough for the roots to get at the goodness inside. By the time the peel finally releases its potassium, your roses are dormant for the year. You miss the entire bloom window. That is exactly why most folks who try the lazy method see nothing happen. The peel is doing its job, just on a timeline that does not line up with when the rose actually wants the food. The fix is preparation. You have to break that peel down before you put it in the ground, or break it down at the same time you put it in the ground, so the nutrients are bioavailable when the rose is hungry, which is roughly 30 days before the first flush opens. There are 3 preparations I use, and I'm going to give you all 3 because each one fits a different stage of the rose's year. The first preparation is dried banana peel powder. This is your slow, steady release. Save your peels for a couple of weeks. Lay them out flat on a baking tray and put them in your oven at the very lowest setting, around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 95 Celsius, for 2 to 3 hours, until they are dark brown and brittle enough to snap in your fingers. If you have a dehydrator, even better. Once they are bone dry, drop them in a blender or grind them up in an old coffee grinder until you have a coarse powder. That powder will keep on a shelf for a year. To apply, you scratch about 3 tablespoons of the powder into the top inch of soil all the way around the drip line of each established rose bush, not right against the stem. Around the drip line, which is roughly where the outer leaves stretch out to. That is where the feeder roots actually live. Most folks dump fertilizer at the base of the trunk, and it might as well be on concrete because there are no working roots there. Get it out where the leaves are reaching and water it in well. Do this once at the start of the season, about 30 days before you expect your first buds to open, and again right after the first flush finishes to fuel the second wave. The second preparation is banana peel tea, and this is your fast-acting hit. This is what I use when I am trying to push a bush that is looking sluggish, or when I want to stack the deck for a particular show or a particular bloom flush. You take 3 or 4 fresh peels, chop them into pieces about the size of a postage stamp, and drop them into a 1-gallon jar of water. Cover it loosely with a cloth, not a sealed lid, because some gases will release. Set it somewhere out of direct sun for 48 hours. 3 days max. Any longer, and it starts to go funky on you. After 48 hours, the water will have turned a pale yellowish brown, and you will see a faint sweetness when you sniff it. Strain out the peel pieces and toss them on the compost. The liquid is your tea. Dilute it 1 part tea to 5 parts plain water. So 1 cup of tea into 5 cups of water. Pour 2 pints, that is roughly 1 liter, around the drip line of each rose. Do this every 2 weeks during the active growing season. You will start to see the response in 7 to 10 days. Leaves get darker, buds get fatter, the color gets richer. The third preparation is the one I am going to come back to at the end, the fermented banana brew. And that is the secret weapon I picked up from the old fella at the fair. We will get to that one. So now you know the why. You know the 3 preparations. Let me walk you through the precise 30-day schedule that gave me the doubled bloom count, because timing is honestly half the battle. Day 1. This is roughly 30 days before you expect your first roses to open. In my zone, that means I am starting in early to mid-April, depending on the spring. If you are further south, you might be starting in March. If you are further north, mid-May. The way to time it is, when your rose canes have leafed out and the new shoots are about 3 inches long, that is your day 1. The plant is just starting to wake its hunger up. On day 1, you are doing 2 things. First, you scratch 3 tablespoons of dried banana peel powder into the soil around the drip line of each bush. Second, you water it in with 2 pints of banana peel tea diluted, as I just described. That combination does 2 things at once. The powder starts a slow release that will keep feeding the plant steadily over the next 4 to 6 weeks. The tea hits the roots immediately and tells the plant, The buffet is open. Get to work. Day 7. Now we check the soil. This is where most folks skip a step that genuinely matters. Roses prefer a soil pH between roughly 6 and 6.5, which is mildly acidic. If your soil is too alkaline, the rose physically cannot take up the potassium, no matter how much you put down. You can dump a wheelbarrow of banana peels around your bush, and if your pH is wrong, the plant cannot absorb the nutrients. You buy a cheap pH test kit at any garden center. 5 quid. Test the top 3 inches of soil at the drip line. If your reading is above 6.5, you need to bring it down a bit. The simplest way is a handful of used coffee grounds worked into the top inch of soil around the bush. Coffee grounds are mildly acidic and they break down beautifully. Do that on day 7, and the pH will start drifting toward where the rose wants it within a couple of weeks. If your pH is already in range, congratulations, you can skip this step. Day 14. Second tea application, same dilution. 2 pints around the drip line of each bush. By now, you should be seeing visible response. New shoots are stretching out faster. Leaf color is deeper. Bud sites along the canes are starting to swell. If you look closely, you can sometimes see 2 or even 3 bud points where last year you only got 1. That is the potassium doing its work. The plant has the resources to commit to more flowers, so it does. Day 21. This is when I add the bonus step. A handful of crushed eggshells scratched into the soil at the drip line. Eggshells are calcium, and roses use calcium to build strong cell walls in the petals. Petals built with adequate calcium hold their shape longer, resist heat damage better, and the color stays vivid for an extra 2 or 3 days on the bush. Without enough calcium, you get that papery, fragile look where the outer petals brown off before the center even fully opens. Crushed eggshells, just a small handful, worked in lightly, fixes that. Day 28. Final tea application before the flush. 2 pints, same dilution. By this point, you should have visible bud heads forming on most of your canes, and they should be noticeably bigger than what you got last year. Once the first color starts showing on the buds, you stop the tea. The plant has what it needs. Anything more from here, and you risk pushing too much leaf at the expense of bloom quality. Day 30 plus, watch your roses. The first flush, in my experience, comes in roughly 5 to 7 days fuller and heavier than a bush that did not get the protocol. The blooms are bigger. The petal count is higher. The color is deeper. And the part that surprised me most the first year I did this, the stems are thicker and stronger, so the blooms hold themselves up properly instead of flopping over the way some heavy hybrid teas tend to do. Now I want to talk about the 4 mistakes I see folks make with this trick, because I made every single one myself, and they are the difference between this working and this being just another piece of garden folklore that goes nowhere. The first mistake is burying a whole peel. I already covered the timing problem. 6 to 9 months is too slow. But there is a second problem with whole peels, which is that they sit in the soil and ferment in place, sometimes anaerobically, which means without enough oxygen. That can produce alcohols and acids that actually damage the fine feeder roots they are sitting next to. So you can hurt your rose by being lazy with this. Always prepare the peels first. Powder, tea, or fermented brew. Never raw whole peels in the root zone of an established bush. The second mistake is putting the application right against the trunk. I see this all the time. Folks pile fertilizer, mulch, peels, whatever, right up against the woody base of the rose. There are no working feeder roots there. Those big woody bases are structural, not absorbing. The feeder roots, the fine little white hair-like roots that actually take up the nutrients, are out at the drip line and a little beyond. Always apply at the drip line. Always. The third mistake is overdoing it. More is not better with potassium. If you flood the soil with too much potassium, you actually block the plant from taking up calcium and magnesium properly, and you end up with weaker blooms and yellowing leaves. The rates I gave you, 3 tablespoons of powder, 2 pints of diluted tea every 2 weeks during active growth are the rates that work. Doubling them does not double your blooms. It causes problems. Trust the rates. The fourth mistake is the one nobody talks about: watering inconsistently. Roses move potassium through their system using water. If your watering swings between bone dry and soaking wet, the nutrient uptake gets jerky and uneven, and you lose half the benefit of feeding. Roses want a deep, slow drink once or twice a week, not a daily sprinkle and not a flood after a dry spell. Mulch your roses with 2 inches of bark or shredded leaves. Water them deeply at the base, and you will hold steady moisture without drowning the roots. The banana peel protocol works 2 or 3 times better when the watering is steady. All right, the fermented banana brew. The secret weapon I told you about? This is the one that took my second flush from a sad little afterthought to something that genuinely competes with my main spring flush. You take 6 to 8 banana peels, fresh or saved up over a few days in the fridge. Chop them into rough pieces. Drop them into a clean 2-liter jar or jug, glass or food-grade plastic. Add 1 tablespoon of unsulfured molasses, sometimes called blackstrap molasses, which you can find at any health shop or in the baking aisle. The molasses is the food that the wild bacteria and yeasts already living on the peels need to get going. Then, top the jar up with non-chlorinated water. Rainwater is best. Tap water that has been left to stand overnight will work fine. Cover the jar loosely. A bit of cheesecloth or a tea towel held with a rubber band is ideal. You want air to flow, but you want to keep flies out. Set it somewhere warm but out of direct sunlight. Around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, that is roughly 70 to 77 Fahrenheit. Stir it gently once a day with a wooden spoon. Within 24 hours, you will start to see small bubbles forming. By day 3, the smell will shift from raw banana to something sweeter and slightly tangy, almost like a fruit cider. By day 5 to 7, the brew is fully fermented and ready to use. To apply, you dilute 1 part fermented brew to 20 parts water. That is roughly half a cup of brew into 10 cups of water. Pour 2 pints around the drip line of each rose bush. Do this once every 3 weeks from midsummer through early autumn. What you are doing is delivering bioavailable potassium, calcium, and magnesium directly into the root zone, plus a flood of beneficial microbes that wake up the soil biology around the rose. The fermentation process pre-digests the nutrients, the same way our gut does with food. The plant gets to use almost all of it almost immediately. The first year I started using this brew on my second flush, I went from getting maybe a dozen sad little late summer blooms to getting close to 40 good blooms on the same bushes. Same plants, same season. The only change was the brew. It is now the single thing I would not skip if you put a gun to my head. If you only do one thing from this entire video, do the brew. A few quick notes before we wrap. Do not use this protocol on newly planted bare root roses in their first year. They do not have the root system yet to handle a heavy potassium push, and you can stress the plant. Wait until the second spring after planting. Establish bushes only. Do not use the brew on roses growing in a heavily acidic soil, anything below pH 5.5. The brew will push the pH down further, and you will start having uptake problems for other nutrients. Test before you brew if you are not sure. And one last thing. This protocol is designed for bush, shrub, and hybrid tea roses growing in the ground. Container roses need a slightly modified version because the soil volume is so much smaller and the nutrient swings can be sharper. For a container rose, have every dose I gave you and apply twice as often at half strength. That gives you the same total nutrient delivery with much smoother peaks, which the smaller root system needs. So, there it is. The whole 30-day banana peel protocol that doubled my rose blooms, every preparation explained, every mistake I made along the way, and the fermented brew that turns a quiet second flush into something you can actually be proud of. None of this costs you anything beyond peels you were already throwing in the bin, a bit of molasses, and 10 minutes of attention every couple of weeks. And the difference at bloom time, if you do it right, is the kind of difference that will have your neighbors coming over and asking what on earth you sprayed on them. If this helped you out, do me a favor and leave a comment below telling me what kind of roses you grow and which preparation you are going to try first. I read every comment and I love hearing what folks are working with in their own gardens. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button because I have got a whole series of these old kitchen scrap tricks coming, and the next one is on coffee grounds for hydrangeas, which honestly might be even more dramatic than this one. Thanks for spending the time with me today. Keep your soil happy, keep your watering steady, and I will see you out by the rose bed next time.